There are clear rules and regulations as to what makes a car road legal. But for some manufacturers, well, they see it as more of a dare. Hey guys, it's Stype here with a list of 7 cars that are just barely legal. Let's do this. Dodge Demon. Although Dodge created this devil's chariot primarily to go drag racing with, they knew exactly what the people would be thinking. Oh, I want to go to work in one of these. It would add so many inches to my yogurt gun. And that's the sole reason why the Demon existed at all. Bragging rights. Dodge got to say, look at us, we made the fastest accelerating road car ever. While the buyers got to say, mine is faster than yours, and that means I'm better. Anyway, the Demon. What made it so fast then? Lots of power. Obviously, 840 horsepower to be exact. Then you need a heavy-duty clutch and a crank to transfer all that power to the tires, and then the tires themselves. The Demon came out of the factory with Nitto NTO 5R drag radials. And those are, despite the rated duration of just 2,000 miles and the fact that they have fewer grooves than Gordon Ramsay's forehead, somehow still road legal. And I don't get it. A Kinder Egg is too dangerous, but this is fine? What? The lawyers at Dodge share my befuddlement too, which is why they made every customer sign a document that basically says, I've been warned, so I can't sue Dodge if I crash and die, eh? And get this, in the end, the Demon was banned from drag events. Cars that go under 10 seconds must have a roll cage installed to be eligible, and this car didn't have one. So what did Dodge do? They bragged about that too.
At first, sounds like a negative, but reality is it's really huge street credibility for this car.
Toyota GT1. The best way to stop a racing series from becoming too dangerous is to introduce a rule that your race car has to be based on a less extreme road car, of which a certain number was produced. However, in the case of the FIA GT1 class, that number was so low that to keep the competitive edge, some manufacturers did it the other way around. Give a purpose-built endurance racer some blinkers, number plates, and a muffler, and you're good to go. That's how we got street versions of the CLK GTR, 911 GT1, and my favorite of all of them, the Toyota GT1. I know, Toyota, the boring granny of the car industry, had to say,
"Why, yes, dearie, this is our new road car."
Okay, it wasn't just the blinkers, plates, and muffler. FIA also required it to have seating for at least 2, and yeah, you'll be squeezed tighter than in an inmate sphincter on their first night, but yeah, sure, 2 seats. Pass. Then it had to have storage space big enough for a suitcase, and Toyota argued that it could fit inside the fuel tank. Never mind that you can't put it in, but look, it's big enough. Also, a pass. And, you need to build 20 of these cars. Oh, we will, 100%, don't you worry about that now. They didn't. Toyota soon quit the endurance racing, and after building only 2 road versions, went like,
That's not worth it.
Lotus Omega. Omega, by GM subsidiary Opel, was nothing to write home about. Just a bland old 4-door saloon, marketed under many brands and names as a cheaper alternative to BMW or Mercedes. So, spice it up a bit. GM asked its other subsidiary, Lotus, to give it some more speed, and well, once they were done with it, they should have named it Alpha and Omega instead.
Yeah, boy.
Never mind the fast saloon alternatives from BMW and Mercedes anymore, let's go a step further. Let's take the Corvette ZR1 for reference, which at the time was the most expensive, most advanced, and fastest car General Motors had ever made.
Objection!
No, it wasn't. This family saloon could still outrun it, despite less power and worse aero. Hell, even a V12 Testarossa would get smoked. The Alpha and Omega was like a Charger Hellcat wide-body of its time, but even more untouchable, and for some reason, this caused quite a stir in the land of the dental nightmares, Britain. Put a speed limiter on it, yelled the Autocar magazine. Should ordinary family peasants have access to such a fast car, debated the parliament. And after a gang of criminals used it to outrun the Popo and their pathetic rovers, the Association of Chief Police Officers, too, joined the campaign to have it banned. Luckily, the judge said no. Why should only the rich have access to fast cars? And by golly, he was right. Right? Right. Dodge Viper RT10. The problem with the first-gen Viper is they really didn't want it to be a modern car at all. The goal was to resurrect the 60s Shelby Cobra in all its glory and then add just the bare minimum of what is required to have it be road legal still. And so despite costing 52 grand, which in 1992 dollars was quite a lot of money, the Viper lacked traction control, stability control, anti-lock brakes, airbags, or any other safety feature that could be had in the 92 Civic. The Civic wouldn't burn your ankles either every time you got out of it. See these side exhausts? They can get searing hot. And if you're not careful, something will smell like cooking.
Where's the lamb sauce?
Solution? Put a warning label. This rear bridge looks like a protective bar all roadsters have in case of a rollover. But it isn't that. Drive carefully, says another warning label.
Fuck you, I won't do what you tell me!
There's more, or should I say less. The Viper lacked a roof, which isn't all that strange, but it didn't have any windows either. Yeah, you get some flimsy clip-on pieces, but those leaked more than my ass after eating a spicy taco. And look where they anchored the seatbelt, on the door. If the door gets ripped off, you'll be yanked out with it too. Speaking of the doors, they don't have handles. You need to reach in to open it from the inside, and the same is true with locking and unlocking it too. Nice feature, bro. And somehow, all of this was road legal. BAC Mono. A Formula One car is the ultimate in automotive speed and engineering, but you can't take it out on the public road, and that's a bummer. Luckily, there's the BAC Mono, which is the closest you'll ever get to feel what it's like when Michael Schumacher is stuck in traffic. Unlike every other F1 car on the road, the Mono is unique because it has seating for just one, right smack in the middle, with the buzzing engine pressing almost against your spine. Granted, the engine isn't an F1 source like you find in some of the others, but it isn't any less impressive either, producing 340 horsepower out of just 2 liters without turbos or superchargers is just an incredible figure, a world record in fact, and because Mono weighs less than Lizzo, 340 is plenty. It does 0 to 60 quicker than any other rear-wheel drive car ever. Well, except for the slick-tired Demon. The underbody is lined with plywood for when you scrape it, and you will scrape it. It's easier and cheaper to replace the plywood than a carbon fiber floor. That's yet another thing that's copied from the F1 world. Also, the interior is molded for each specific owner. Your hand grips are transferred to the steering wheel, and the seat is made out of your own ass print. BAC will even stretch out the cabin if you're a bit of a Lizzo yourself. All in all, not much of a road car, and many foreign laws agree too. Porsche 959. The 959, a 1980 supercar that's still more advanced than some of its modern rivals. It had never before seen tech like active suspension, tire pressure monitors, sequential turbocharging, and an all-wheel drive with torque vectoring. Also, a record-setting top speed of 197. What it didn't have, as Bill Gates would learn the hard way, was a blessing from the US government to drive on the public roads. In 1987, old Billy Boy would place an order to get this Bugatti Chiron of its time, but as soon as it arrived in our land of the free, this car was impounded and locked away. Turns out Porsche never got an NHTSA certified. That required no less than 4 cars to be destroyed in a series of crash tests. And given the price, rarity, and the fact that Porsche was losing money on each and every one they sold, it's easy to understand why the Germans decided not to bother. But Gates was a billionaire, and such people always get what they want. So we spent the next 13 years lobbying to get the so-called show and display bill passed. Under this bill's bill, it would be possible to import cars that are of such historic or technological significance that it's in the public interest to show and display them. Well, as long as you pinky swear that you won't drive them more than 2,500 miles per year. Still, it's something, and after 13 years in prison, this 959 was finally reunited with its owner. Aww. Other cars allowed by this bill's bill also include these. Pause the video if you need. Anyways, it's time for the honorable mentions. Let's see if you can guess them. And at number 1, Aston Martin Valkyrie. When you think of Aston Martin, you think luxurious grand tours, sophisticated designs, and James effing Bond. Not this. It's called the Valkyrie, and it's poised to destroy every lap record ever set by any road car ever. Now, what possessed Aston Martin to suddenly care about such stuff?
Sure, I don't know.
To make this happen, they employed the know-how of Adrian Newey, the chief technical officer of Red Bull's F1 team. The same guy who created the most dominant F1 car in the history of the sport was now let loose out of the cage and given some number plates to work with. This is what he came up with: over 1,000 savage horses, less than 3,000 pounds of weight, and the body so subjugated to the laws of aero that it's, in my opinion, outright ugly. Blah! But that's what you get when you focus on speed so much and handling that you completely ignore everything else, including the driver himself. All the vibrations, the G-forces, the noise, they're so unbearable that Chris Harris had this to say about it.
What did he say?
And it's not just when you're trashing it on the track. Here's Max Verstappen doing some city driving and he's still wearing noise-canceling headphones. Which begs the question, why? Why would anyone buy this car? What? Waterboarding yourself just isn't fun anymore? No, it's because they get to say, I have the fastest car in the world. Suffering from success, indeed. Anyway, that's all I have to say about this topic. Go watch something else, and I'll see you in the next one. Cut!